All right. I'd like to start off by saying Barakatah Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Ruach Kodash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is Revelation chapter 11. Pretty much we're going to go through the breakdown of it. I'll try to get some key points in it. Lord's will, it'll be an edifying lesson. And I know if I mess up any part of it, I know the Elder Pastor will correct me on it, and I could go back and do a correction, on whatever it is that if the Spirit, if I do go off on it, just saying that, because, we have to be real, but I've been meditating on this chapter for a long time. I've been reading certain parts of it, certain verses, looking at it, and analyzing it, to make sure that I have the correct breakdown on it. Like I said, I've been going over it. I mean, this is not something new. It's like from time to time, there's a particular verse or verses that come to mind, and I kind of go over them, kind of mull them over in my mind, to make sure that I have the proper understanding of it. Because at the end of the day, this is why Elder Apostle Tahar says, you got to make sure you go over those breakdowns, because there's no reference, but you could just go every time you forget something to, look it up, and kind of go over it to make sure that you got it right. It's something that when they take certain videos down, it's gone. So either you have it or you don't. All right, so we're going to get into it and break it down. The word revelation, same as the word apocalypse. The word is back, and velation is where you get the word veil. So pretty much revelation is to peel back the veil. So these were revelations that were given of the end times, of things that would come to pass, in the future, which were in those times now. And there were key things that would happen to let us know that the end was near. This was a series of visions that pretty much meant the same thing. Most of the visions in Revelation and certain other parts of the scriptures is the same story told over and over again, using different symbolisms, different allegories. And this is what makes it, at one point made it so difficult to understand, until the revelation was given by the Lord Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai to his men. I was going to go to a precept. Matter of fact, no, you know what? Let's just get into it and just deal with Revelation chapter 11. Revelation chapter 11 verse 1. It says, "And there was given me a reed like unto a rod." Now, a reed like unto a rod pretty much is a measuring tool. So what is this reed like unto a rod? Reed is the measuring tool, and the rod would be like correction. So what is that? This is the Bible, the ultimate instruction book on the do's and don'ts of the things that are pleasing and displeasing to the Most High Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. And the angel stood saying, "Rise and measure the temple of the Most High." So what is the measuring the temple of the Most High is? Well, the temple of the Most High are the Israelites, so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native American Indians, and wherever they may be on the planet, no matter what they look like, right? And when it says measure the temple, means to teach it. Why? Because one of the things that happened was the Lord scattered us throughout the four corners of the earth, and this word was what he was going to use to sift Israelites from around the world, among all different nations. All right, so that's why we have to teach. Like you have this thing. Just finished watching the Elder Karata Zaba, the head of the Baltimore camp, doing a video on one of the Sakari individuals, where they blatantly said that GMS, has white people in their, in their congregation, is something along those lines. Not those words specifically, but pretty much, insinuating that we have Edomites, in our congregation. And like the brother said, if that's not what he meant, then he can clear it up, and give the sense of what he said, because that was like a blanket statement. But that's not the case, because he also mentioned Romans 8:16, where the Spirit beareth witness with our spirit, because one individual was being accused of being a Hamite, I guess because of what he looked like. I was just listening to the video. I couldn't really watch it. I was just listening to it. And he quoted Romans 8:16, that the Spirit beareth witness with our spirit. So being that the individual was getting it, understanding that, he was saying he was an Israelite, which he's correct on that. So that's the same thing with these so-called Edomite-looking Israelites that are learning the word, teaching the word, breaking the scriptures down better than some of the individuals that look like your typical Israelite. But yet they're heathens because of the way they look. And this is the ignorance, of Jake out there. That just because someone looks so-called white, that they're white automatically. That's not the case. It depends on the spirit. That's why the scriptures speak about trying the spirit. So it says, and measure the temple of the Most High, which temple of the Most High, the Israelites measure, meaning to teach, and the altar, because you have what at the altar? You have the priests that officiate the business of the Lord at the altar, and them that worship therein, meaning all of Israel. So we are to teach all of Israel. We're to teach all nations. But the main ones that are going to be taught, to be sealed, to be delivered, are Israelites, because that's who the kingdom of heaven is for. And there's many scriptures on that. It says, but the court which is without the temple, leave out. And we went through this before, means to thrust out, because the nations have no part nor inheritance with us. When you go back and understand the promise that the Most High made with Abraham, there's a reason why he said Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. All right. It says, and measure it not, meaning don't teach that outer temple. Don't teach that which is outside of the temple, which is what? Profane. Profanum means outside of the temple. So don't teach them, for it is given unto the Gentiles. Now, in this case, this is talking about the actual nations. And this is one scripture where you will never hear those plantation Christians bring out. They will never bring the scripture out unless they're trying to contort and butcher it. Now, this is a key point here, right? It says, in the holy city, which are the Israelites, shall they tread underfoot 40 and 2 months. Now, when you deal with the 40 and 2 months, the scriptures speak of this time frame often, and it speaks of it in different forms. You have the 42 months, which equals 1,260 days, which equals 3.5 years. All right, and it speaks about this often, but it's not actually 42 months. It's not actually 1,260 days. It's not actually 3.5 years. This is prophetic, and it's a representation of the 350 years. So this is what's key to understanding certain verses in this chapter. All right. And then there was something down here that I didn't actually click on any of these. I just was looking at it. But this is a representation of 3.5 years. So now what are those 3.5 years, 3.5 years? What is it a representation of? Well, it says that they were going to tread the holy city underfoot, which are the Israelites. It's not talking about the actual city of Jerusalem. Because you may have some, back in 70 AD, I mean, before that, 66 to 70 AD, and a little beyond that, the Romans came in. Yeah, but this is written way after that happened. This was written at least a good 20 some odd years in the future after that event. So this was not talking about that, because this is something that they were going to do. All right. So what is this 42 months, 1,260 days, or the 3.5 years? That is a representation of the 350 years of captivity. From the time that Judah, Yahweh, was brought to the soils of America until the time when the truth really came to fruition and started taking root, and teachers started to build and started to go out there and plant those seeds. All right. Then it goes on to say, and I will give power unto my two witnesses. Now this is twofold. This is actually speaking about two individuals, but we're going to deal with the two kingdoms, which are the southern kingdom, headed by Jehoiada, Judah, and the northern kingdom, headed by Aparium, Ephraim. Right? It says, and I will give power unto my two witnesses, and they shall prophesy 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth. Now, this seems like it's speaking about a different time frame, but it's not when you calculate the 42 months and the 1,260 days. It's the same exact thing. 42 months, 1,260 days, 3.5 years. Okay? Which is 350 years. Now it says that these, right, would prophesy 1,260 days clothed in sackcloth. Now the prophets are out here speaking, and we do wear sackcloth, but this is really not what it's, in a different sense, this is not what it's speaking about, because this is speaking about the 1,260 days or the 42 months. So this is when Jake was in hardcore slavery. And what does it mean they were prophesying? Meaning that the curses were upon them, and they were speaking by the actions that they were going through. Okay? And now, do we have proof in the scriptures of this? Yes. Let's go first and foremost to Deuteronomy 28 and 68. And it reads, and the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai shall bring thee into Egypt again. All right, the word Egypt, Matazarium, again, meaning a second time. Now, does that mean we were going to go back into Egypt in captivity again? No. This is a future curse prophecy that was going to happen in the future. But this time, when we go into that iron furnace situation, it's going to be what? With ships. All right. Now, when the Lord had Moses deliver the children of Israel from under the hand of Moses, our forefathers walked on foot. They crossed through, the Gulf of Suez, which was the western peninsula, so to speak, of the top of the Red Sea on dry land, but they didn't cross it by ships. And that was we left there. Our forefathers left there by foot. All right. It says, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Why? Because this is something that the Lord would constantly tell Jake by the prophets. It says, thou shalt see it no more again, meaning what? You would not see your homeland again. All right. Then it says, and there, meaning in this new Egypt, which we're going to read later on in the book of Revelation 11, in this new Egypt, and there you shall be sold unto your enemies. And Esau is our enemies. Because when Jake was brought here to the soils of America, what happened? They were put on auctioning blocks. They were being treated like cattle. They were looking at their eyes, at their teeth, at their ass, picking up their nutsack, grabbing a rod, grabbing the woman's titties, to see, like treating them like cattle, like merchandise. You see? It says for bondmen and bondwomen, and they were sold for bondmen and bondwomen, which is slave men and slave women. The families were separated. Sometimes they'll sell the family together, or sometimes they'll separate the family, the father, the mother, and the children. So, and it says, and no man shall buy you. And this is why these wacky-tacky Christians, especially them Edomite ones, say, well, this can't happen. This is that can't be talking about you so-called black people, because they bought you guys, This says, no man shall buy you. The word here, quanah, in the Hebrew, there's two implications or meanings to it. One is to actually buy and sell, but the other one is to redeem, as we read in another part of the scripture. But that's another lesson. All right. So this, in essence, is what? This is a curse, which is a prophecy. Now, how did Jake prophesy this? By actually going through it. By actually going through the curse of slavery. By actually being put on cargo slave ships and shipped from one part of the world to the other. And this is how they prophesied. That's what we read here. It says, and they shall prophesy 1,260 days clothed in sackcloth. Because back then, during slavery, this truth really wasn't out like that. You had Jakes that knew about the truth. You had, Denmark Vesey. You had Gabriel Prosser. You had Nat Turner. You had other Israelites that knew they were Israelites that would say certain things. But the truth as we know it today did not really start to flourish until 1969, 1970. So this is how they were prophesying, by actually going through the actions of the scriptures. Now, let's go to another one. This is Isaiah chapter 42. Just bear with me. Salaki for that. Isaiah chapter 42, verse 22. It says, but this is a people robbed and spoiled. Again, another prophecy. And how did this play out? It wasn't actually spoken, but the actions of it happened through the action of the people that it fell upon. This is why the scriptures say the Spirit beareth witness with our spirit that we are the sons of the living power. It says they are all of them snared in holes, because they're snared in what? In these different churches and philosophies, political movements, socioeconomic movements, so on and so forth. And they are hid in prison houses, meaning the same thing with these different philosophies, these different churches, which are nothing but holes that are snares, traps. It says they are for a prey, and Jake is the biggest prey on the planet. From the so-called Negro all the way down to the so-called Mexican. And none delivereth, which goes back to what? Goes back to Deuteronomy 28:68. No man shall buy you. Because Yahushua is coming back. He said, I will not meet thee as a man. So Yahushua in his total glory is coming to redeem us from the hands of Esau, the slave master today. It says for a spoil, which a spoil means that what you rob, loot, and none saith restore. Yeah, because there has not been any restoration for the nation of Israel, and there will not be until the Lord comes back, because that's going to be the true reparations when Yahushua comes back. Who among you will give ear to this? Who will hearken and hear for the time to come? Who gave Jacob for a spoil and Israel to the robbers? Did not the Lord? So the Lord Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua gave us over to the hand of these devils. Why? Because it had to be fulfilled. So what, in essence, what happened? The action of slavery was a prophecy that was playing out, on the people of the Lord. He against whom we have sinned, see? For they would not walk in his ways, neither were they obedient unto his law. All right? So Jake was not obedient to the laws of the Most High, and this is why we fell as a nation. It says, therefore he hath poured upon him the fury of his anger, the curses, and the strength of battle, because the Lord said in battle array, he said in battle array against us when we forsook him. And it has set him on fire round about. And that, because, man, slavery is hell. Yet he knew not. And it burned him, yet he laid it not to heart. Yeah, because Jake didn't consider that this was a direct curse from the Lord Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua. So now let's go to Isaiah 28. Let's give you some more. Isaiah 28 and 12. Now, this is speaking about when we deal about line upon line, here a little, there a little. That's dealing with how you break the scriptures down. We go to one precept in Genesis. You might have to go to the book of Matthew or to the book of Zechariah, to the book of 1 Thessalonians, and break down a scripture with a scripture. Inside joke. But this is also dealing with these precepts taking hold upon Jake and doing and causing Jake to go through the things that the scripture spoke about. Therefore, or like they say, whereby fulfilling prophecy. Isaiah 28 and 12, to whom he said, this is the rest, meaning this truth is our rest. Because when we're weary, what do the scriptures, what is another name for the scriptures? The comforter. So when we're weary, when we're depressed, when we're worn out, when we're tired, whatever the case is, the scriptures come to comfort us. So it says, to whom he said, this is the rest wherewith you may cause the weary to rest. Yeah. You're going through situations. Your woman coming against you, you lost your job, your family's coming against you, you're going through hard times. This is the rest wherewith you may cause a weary to rest. Because now we understand why. Yahweh said, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. And this is the refreshing where you get refreshed. See? Because even in boxing and different other events, you have what? You have a period of time where you fight, and you have a period of time where you rest to catch your breath. So these scriptures are the comforter where we are able to catch our breath. It says, yet they would not hear, so they didn't take heed to it. They didn't listen. It says, but the word of the Lord, Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, was unto them. The word of the Lord was unto them, meaning unto who? Unto Israel. So it was really unto them. It was upon them. Precept upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line upon line, here a little and there a little. See? So these things came upon Jake. Here a little and there a little. You know, when you look at the different curses in the book of Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, in some point in time, all Jakes have gone through similar situations of that. That life shall be a madness. You shall become a proverb in the byword. You shall be the tail. He shall be the head. These curses shall be upon you wherever you go. You know, you'll be smitten with the botch of Egypt. So on and so forth. So these curses were line upon line, precept upon precept, and line upon line, here a little and there a little, upon Jake. And that is a part of the prophecy also. It says that they might go, see, and fall backward and be broken and snared and taken. Why? Because these words, the words of this book, took hold upon the Israelites and broke them down and brought them into the cursed position that the Most High set his word out to do. For Jake not adhering to the words of the Lord. Now let's go from there to the book of Daniel, chapter 9 and verse 9. It says, to the Lord our power belong mercies and forgivenesses, though we have rebelled against him. Yeah, because although we went off, the Lord said he will still have mercy upon Jacob and will yet choose Israel. Neither have we obeyed the voice of the Lord our power. That's why we're in the condition we're in. To walk in his laws, which he set before us by his what? His servants, the prophets. So the prophets prophesied this. And when these things started to take hold on Jake, those are the prophecies speaking through the actions Jake was going through for rebelling. Yea, all Israel have transgressed thy law, even by departing, that they might not obey thy voice. Therefore, right? Therefore, the curse is poured upon us. So that means when something is poured upon you, means you're immersed in it. No matter which way you turn, you're immersed in it. There's nothing that can get you out of that situation. You're pickled in it. I mean, that's an inside joke, but it's the truth. It says, and the oath that is written in the law of Moses, the servant of the Most High, because we have sinned against him. Yeah, remember, the Lord said that, you know, through Moses, he said, take heed that you keep all the things in this law. You know, because that way our ways would have been made prosperous. You know, it goes on to say, it says, and he hath confirmed his words, which he spake against us. So the words of the prophecy of this book came upon Jake. And every time Jake was in slavery and they were sold and all that, that was his prophecy speaking through Jake, through the actions that they were going through. It says, and against our judges that judged us, by bringing upon us a great evil. For under the whole heaven hath not been done as hath been done upon Jerusalem. As it is written in the law of Moses, all this evil is come upon us, yet may we not have prayer before the Lord our power. Yeah, because Jake still doesn't turn to Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, because 2/3 are blinded. That we might turn from our iniquities and understand thy truth, because this is true deliverance. This is true freedom, because freedom begins in the mind. You could be physically free, but mentally still in slavery. And it shows by your actions, by your mind, by your thought process. It says, therefore have the Lord watched upon the evil and brought it upon us. For the Lord our power is righteous, in all his works which he doeth, for we obeyed not his voice. And this is why we went through all of these things. So when we read here Revelation 11:3, the other part of it, because there's actually two witnesses, two individuals, but the other part of it dealing with the nation of Israel, the two kingdoms, this is the other side of it. It says, and they shall prophesy 1,203 days clothed in sackcloth. This is dealing with the prophecies that came about upon the two kingdoms, that they would go through this thing. Remember when Esau came here, they took down Gad, they took down Reuben, they took down Issachar, they took down the other tribes. The tribes are already catching hell. But now the fulfillment of the rest of it was when the other three tribes would be brought here to serve what they had to serve, so that we can get to the point of the end times of the latter days, to where the kingdom was going to be joined together once again as one. The tabernacles of David being built. It says, these are the two olive trees and the two candlesticks standing before the power of the earth. And when we go back, matter of fact, let's go from there. First, let's go to the book of Zephaniah. Because it said here, these are the two olive trees and the two candlesticks standing before the power of the earth. Now, what is a candlestick for? A candlestick is to give light. So when you go back, matter of fact, before I get there, let's get this one here. Zephaniah 1:12. And it shall come to pass at that time that I will search Jerusalem or Yerushalayim with candles. So what is this? This is the Lord putting the Spirit in the prophets to be that light, to shine the light, so that the elect from among the nation of Israel, Yerushalayim, can come to the light and be sealed, be healed, be delivered. It says, and punish the men that are settled on their leads, and the rest of them that are just comfortable in the position that they're in, the Lord's going to destroy them. That say in their heart, the Lord will not do good, neither will he do evil. But the point is that the Lord is searching Jerusalem, Yerushalayim, with candles, which are the prophets. These are the two olive trees and the two candlesticks standing before the power of the earth. And if any man will hurt them, fire proceedeth out of their mouth. Now the Lord is going to cause something to happen, to where he's going to have some type of divine intervention come between himself and Esau to protect us. But this right here, when it says the fire proceeded out of their mouth, this is speaking about the ancient prophets, Elijah in particular. When the man came with the 50, the captain of 50 with their 50, I believe it was 3 different times, and 2 of the times he said, if I be a man of the Lord, then let fire come down and consume you. And it did, and his 50. So this is given examples of our forefathers in the past, the prophets in the past, and the miracles that they did and the power that they had for protection from the Lord. And the Lord is going to protect us in this time also. How, we don't know exactly, but we know that it's coming. When the enemy shall come in like a flood, the Spirit of the Lord shall lift up a standard against him. So it says, and if any man hurt them, fire proceeded out of his mouth, and devoureth his enemy, and devoureth their enemies, which was Elijah. And if any man will hurt them, he must in this manner be killed. Yeah, because the Lord said, touch not my anointed and do my prophets no harm. These have power to shut heaven. Again, this was Elijah when he shut the heavens down for 3.5 years during the time of Ahab, the king. It says, these have power to shut heaven, that it rain not in the days of their prophecy. Now, they actually prophesied verbally. And then when the rain came, that was a fulfillment of the prophecy playing out. It says, and have power over waters to turn them to blood, and to smite the earth with all plagues as often as they will. Which this goes to Moses, when he was bringing the plagues through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Shai upon Egypt. So there's going to be something that's going to happen that the Lord is going to grant us, Now this precept here in the verse 7 goes hand in hand with verse 3, where it says, and when they shall have finished their testimony, meaning what? When the ending of the prophecy would happen, which was what, the 3.5 years, 42 months, 1,260 days. It says, the beast that ascendeth out of the bottomless pit shall make war against them and shall overcome them and kill them. All right, so this is going during the time of slavery. And what happened when Esau came out and he so-called freed the slaves? His whole mission right now is what? To destroy the Israelites. What's a precept for that? Let's go real quick to the book of 2nd Ezra, chapter 16. And verse, let's get to the point. The verse is verse 60, let's see, 60, actually 70. For there shall be in every place and in the next cities a great insurrection upon those that fear the Lord. Okay? There's going to be a great insurrection upon those that fear the Lord. And I had skipped something to go into the matter of fact. You know what? Let me go back. Salaki, because I skipped this. I want to go back to this real quick for a hot minute. Revelation 11:3. It says, and I will give power unto my two witnesses, and they shall prophesy 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth. Just to give further proof on this 42 months, so on and so forth. Revelation 12:6. And the woman, who's the woman? The woman is the nation of Israel. You know, fled into the wilderness. Back then it was what? Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, and then you had a sprinkle of the other tribes, but mainly the three tribes. That's why I spoke about the third part of the stars of heaven. It says, where she hath a place prepared for her. So when the Romans brought the persecution upon Israel during 70 AD, the southern kingdom fled. They fled all over. They fled up into Europe, up into Asia Minor, and wherever. And then a lot of them fled down into the interiors of Africa and ended up where? They ended up on the west coast of so-called Africa, the land of Ham. All right. So the wilderness is Africa, so-called Africa, where she had the place prepared of the Most High. So now from that place, the Lord had this place here, America, prepared for Jake to be brought over here to serve their captivity, but also to fulfill prophecy and eventually to build back up the nation of Israel. It says, and they should feed her there 1,260 days, going back to the time frame, 42 months, 1260 days, and 3.5 years, which is during the time of slavery. Now we know that this time period was not speaking about so-called Africa, because from 70 AD, it wasn't until the 14 to the 1500s, you know, down the road into the 1600s that Jake was brought over here in slavery. So that exceeds that time frame. You're talking about at least a good 1500, 1600 years later. You know? So we know that that's not talking about that. But the place that was prepared for the Most High here in America, when the Southern Kingdom was brought here, that fits perfectly. All right? So just keep that in mind. So let's go back to Revelation 11. And let's go to, let's go back to the 4th verse. It says, these are the two olive trees and the two candlesticks standing before the power of the earth, which is the southern and the northern kingdom, right? And we read how the Lord is going to search Jerusalem or Yerushalayim with candles. Now let's go from there. So what happened? What was the light? What was this the olive tree, the oil from the olive tree, the light from the candles? What was that? That was prophecy. That was the prophets speaking on these things to build Jake up, to get him out of that dead state, to wake him up out of that deep sleep. So when we go to Ezekiel, the 37th chapter, this is a very key point in the wakening up of the 12 tribes. Oh, matter of fact, there was one more verse, I believe. Okay, no, that goes into something. Okay, so This is the time frame, when the 12 tribes started to be woken back up. And this is why the what they call the Valley of the Dry Bones scripture, Ezekiel 37, is so important to understand, because it gives you the blueprint of what took place and what has taken place even unto this very day. So let's go to Ezekiel 37 and 15, and it says, reunion of Yahweh and Yasha'Allah. And this is key. Keep that in mind. This is a reunion, meaning a bringing back together of what was once split apart. It says, the word of the Lord came again unto me, saying, moreover, thou son of man, take thee one stick and write upon it for Judah, Yahweh, and for the children of Israel, his companions. Why? Because you had the nation split into two. And those of you that are not familiar with that history, you should familiarize yourself with that history. Go back to the book of Kings, and read the history, and maybe the Spirit will jump on brothers to go into the breakdown of the history of, how the kingdom was split into two, It says for Yahweh and for the children of Israel, his companion, then take another stick and write upon it for Joseph, or Yahusap, which is the father of Ephraim and Manasseh, or Manasseh and Ephraim. The stick of Ephraim and the name Joseph is synonymous with the name Ephraim, or Yahusap is synonymous with the name Ephraim. That's why in Revelation 7, it uses Joseph or Yahusap instead of Ephraim, but it still uses Manasseh, because these two names were interchangeable. Numbers, the 1st chapter, 32nd verse, it says that Joseph, namely Ephraim. All right. And for all the house of Israel, his companions, because the nation was split into two, and join them to one to another into one stick, one plank. And this is why we have the 12 tribes sign out there, which no one ever did. No one ever went out there. No plantation Christian ever went out there. No Amalekite ever went out there. No other nation ever went out there with a 12 tribe sign saying who the 12 tribes are and prophesying. But we got it wrong. You're going to figure. And join them one to another into one stick, and they shall become one in thine hand. Why? Because the Lord is bringing the union back between the southern kingdom and the northern kingdom to build back up the tabernacles of David. It says, and that's pretty much it. It goes into more. You could read the whole chapter. This is the main part that I wanted to get of the tribes coming back together into one. Because remember, we're reading about the 2 olive trees, the other portion of it, which is the nation of Israel. All right. Let's see what else we got. Oh, beautiful. Now let's go from there to Jeremiah chapter 50 and verse 33. And it says, thus saith the Lord Yahweh Shemel Shai of hosts, the children of Israel, Yasha'Allah, and the children of Yahweh, Judah, were oppressed together. See? Because we were oppressed here together. And Esau used our own people against us. You had the Gadite scouts that were helping take down their people. You had the Buffalo soldiers, which was Yahweh, helping to take down their brothers, the Gadites, so on and so forth. You see? So we were oppressed together in this country. It says, but the thing is that the history of what happened to the northern kingdom, the so-called North American Indians, so on and so forth, Puerto Ricans, down in South America, Asher and all that, that's not really on the forefront because it happened so long ago, and that's what they're trying to do with slavery. They're trying to sweep it under the rug because it happened some time ago, but it's fresher in the minds of people than the taking of this country and the taking of these continents over on this side of the world. All right, so it says, thus saith the Lord of hosts, the children of Israel and the children of Yahweh that were pressed together, and all that took them captives held them fast. They refused to let them go. And to this very day we're in captivity. And the Lord said that if we're found in the hands of this man, they shall be put to death. All right. That's why it says, their Redeemer is strong, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, the Lord, power of hosts, is his name. He shall thoroughly plead their cause. So the Lord is going to plead our cause. He's going to restore us. He's going to give us the reparations. It says that he may give rest to the land and disquiet the inhabitants of Babylon. Yeah, because the land, the people of the Lord, which are going to be brought back to the land of Israel, that's the prize. Because the Lord chose the land for the people's sake. It says, and disquiet the inhabitants of Babylon, because America, Babylon the Great, will be destroyed. And the Lord is coming to visit them, as you read Isaiah 34, which is dealing with mainly with Esau and the other nations, but mainly Esau. The Lord said he's coming to visit them for the controversy of Zion. Now, let's go back to Revelation 11 and verse 5. And if any man will hurt them, fire proceeded out of their mouth, which we broke that down, and devoureth their enemies. And if any man shall hurt them, or will hurt them, he must in this manner be killed. These have power to shut heaven, that it rain not in the days of their prophecy, and have power over waters to turn them to blood, and to smite the earth with all plagues as often as they will. We already broke that down. All right. Now, it says, and when they shall have finished their testimony, meaning when the Yahweh, the ones that were in captivity, the other, southern kingdom, when they have finished their testimony, the beast that ascended out of the bottomless pit shall make war against them and shall overcome them and kill them. And this is what we're coming to now, the time of Jacob's trouble. All right. But just like Revelation 20, like when you read Revelation 20, the reason why it could be confusing is because it kind of jumps back and forth. And this is kind of like a jump back and forth. This is jumping to the time after so-called slavery, right? Or slavery. But then when we read the next verse, it's going back in time. Then it goes on to say, and this is going back into the time of slavery, the time where the prophecies were taking hold on Jake and their actions were speaking out the prophecies of the scriptures. It says, and their dead bodies, not physically dead, spiritually dead. Let's go real quick to Proverbs. I believe that's 21. 21 and 16. 16. The man that wandereth out of the way of understanding, which is what? This word, the understanding of this truth, shall what? Shall remain in the congregation of the dead. This is why you had the valley of the dry bones. So they will remain among the congregation of the dead. They're physically alive, but spiritually they're dead. So it says that, and their dead bodies, meaning Jake in the dead state of mind, shall lie in the street of the great city. And what is this great city? America. Babylon the Great. We read in Revelation chapter 17 about this whore, which is America. That is that great city that ruleth over all the kingdoms of the earth. Come on, man. Which spiritually is not actually, but spiritually called Sodom and Egypt. Why? Because look at the actions of here. Look at the legislation that's being passed. Sodom and Egypt. Why? Because Egypt was known what? As a hardcore captivity for the nation of Israel. And it has been a hardcore captivity for the nation of Israel again. It says, where also our Lord was crucified. Now, how was the Lord crucified? The Lord was crucified, in Jerusalem, or right outside the walls. The place of the skull. So how was the Lord crucified here? He was crossed out here. How was he crossed out here? By the image of Serapis Christus / Caesar Borgia. He was scratched out. He was X'd out here. All right. It says, and they of the people, meaning Esau and the other nations, and kindreds and tongues and nations, shall see their dead bodies 3 days and a half. That goes back to the 42 months, the 1,260 days, 3.5 days, or 3.5 years, which are prophetic, which is 350 years. So that whole time, Jake was here. These nations knew about Jake. They knew about, that they were the Israelites, especially the ones that are higher up. Because really the higher ups, the nobles, the so-called nobles and kings and all that, these are the main ones that are really going to get fucked up too. I mean, the other nations are going to get it, but they're going to be the main ones because they know. They have the records. This is why Jake, was not allowed to read the Bible during slavery. It was under the penalty of death. because they know, or they knew, and they still know. So it says, they shall see their dead bodies 3 days and a half, and what? And shall not suffer their dead bodies to be put in graves. So what is a grave? A grave is a resting place for a decomposing body. So Jake, in the decomposed state that they were in, were not put to rest as to who they are, as to why were they going through the things that they were going through, as to them having hope in the end, when all this stuff would go down, that there was going to be a day when the Lord was going to restore us back and build us back up. And the reason why we went through what we went through, to give comfort for the things that we were going through. So they didn't do that. They just allowed Jake to just, pretty much perish in this society. Wow, I got another precept here that I had wrote down. Let me just hold off on this. Let me go to this other precept in the book of Daniel, chapter 7, and verse 19. It says, "Then I would know the truth of the fourth beast, which was the Roman Empire, which America is an extension of that, which was diverse from all the others, exceeding dreadful, whose teeth were of iron, and his nails of brass, which devoured, brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with his feet, and of the 10 horns that were in his head." Now, some of you brothers saw part of the video. The Deacon Athan did that breakdown on Revelation 13. And my beef with that was that he said that the 7 heads and 10 horns, that was America, Babylon the Great, which that's not true. That 7 heads is a representation of the 7 major empires of Esau, beginning with the Greeks all the way to the British. Now, America is a part of that, but America was the 8th head, and the 10 is European Union, But that was pretty much so far, what I my discrepancy on it. Okay. It says, "And of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up, and before whom 3 fell." This is going into the history of America, even because this is where America came in as a revival of the ancient Roman Empire. Even of that horn that had eyes, and this is that horn. The other one which came up, that was America. "And a mouth that spake very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows." So we're coming to the end. So when America came into play, we were at the very end of this 4th beast, because if the 4th beast fell and then it came back into power. "I beheld, and the same horn made war with the saints and prevailed against them." This is going back during that time frame, going to the time when Esau came to the side of the world and conquered the northern kingdom, and then brought the southern kingdom over here. And that was the ending of the suffering once that time was up. Now, we're still suffering, but not like it was before, until the time of Jacob's trouble. That's when it's really going to get hairy out here. It says, "So when this horn made war with the saints and prevailed against them, until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was given to the saints of the Most High, and the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom All right, so we know that when this happened, there was going to be a time when this was going to be the time of deliverance. All right. Now what I want to do is I just want to jump down to the point right here, verse 25. "And he shall speak great words against the Most High," dealing with America, "and shall wear out the saints of the Most High," and which they did, "and think to change times and laws," which they did, "and they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and the dividing of times." See, going back into the same thing. 42 months, 1,260 days, 3.5 years, 3.5 days, times, and the dividing of times is all speaking about the same time frame. All right, so going back to Revelation 11:9, "And they of the people and kindred and tongues and nations shall see their dead bodies 3 days and a half, and shall not suffer their dead bodies to be put in graves, which they didn't. They didn't put Jake to rest. It says, and they that dwell upon the earth shall rejoice over them. That's dealing with all of these nations. And make merry, and shall send gifts one to another. What do you think those gifts were? These were slaves that were being sent, shipped back and forth. It says, because these two prophets tormented them that dwell on the earth. And this goes back to the history. Remember, these devils have the history. They know what time it is. All right. Let's go real quick to Lamentations chapter 2 and 15. It says, all that pass by clap their hands at thee, just dealing with the nations, when we were taken down. They hiss and wag their head at the daughter of Jerusalem, saying, is this the city that men call the perfection of beauty, the joy of the whole earth? You know, it says, all thine enemies have opened their mouth against thee. They hiss and gnash their teeth. You want to cop a list of the names? Go to Psalms 83. Go to Numbers 24. They say, we have swallowed her up. Certainly this is the day that we look for. We have found, we have seen it. It says, the Lord hath done that which he had devised. He hath fulfilled his word that he had commanded in the days of old. Yeah, because the prophecies of the Lord took hold upon Jake. He hath thrown down and hath not pitied, and he hath caused thine enemy to rejoice over thee. He hath set up the horn of thine adversaries. And that's why they have the power, because the Lord gave them that power. Otherwise, they would not be able to do a damn thing. So, moving forward, Revelation 11:11, and after 3 days and a half, the spirit of life from the Most High entered into them. So after slavery, which was from roughly 1619, 1620 to 1969, 1970, that's when the truth really started coming out. And that was the spirit of life from the Most High entering into the Israelites. Because who did it start with? It started with Yahweh. The Lord shall save the tents of Judah first, or Yahweh the first, that the inhabitants of Jerusalem do not magnify themselves against Yahweh. Why? Because Judah or Yahweh is the head tribe. And they had to receive the word first. They are the top tribe. They are the most special tribe. They are the most gifted tribe. They are the ones that do the most amazing things. So it says, and they stood upon their feet, because now our nationality is fully out. The world had to recognize this truth. They had to recognize the great awakening that's happening. And that's where you have certain individuals out there among the Israelites, especially in the leadership positions and in the midst of the congregation, that are spies, that are doing certain things to shine a bad light on the Hebrew Israelite thing, because they know that we're not violent, but they paint that picture to the world so that they can justify and tearing it down, like they've done many other groups where Jake, whether it was Yahweh, whether it was Ephraim or Issachar or whatever, or Gad, set up certain situations to try to better Jake's situation. See? They don't want that. As long as we're killing each other, as long as our women are being whores, murdering their babies, you know, Jake being out there destitute on drugs, no alcoholics on the corner, downtrodden, you know, all loss of life, despair. They cool with that. But when they see Jake coming together and building and coming back to their nationality, they can't stand it, because they know that when that happens, the Most High draws closer to us. And they can't stand it, because they know what happens when we get back in the good graces of the Lord. It's hell upon these other nations. And that's why they rejoice over them, because it said that they tormented these two prophets, or I forget, the two witnesses, tormented them, which means these other nations. It says, and great fear fell upon them which saw them. Yeah, because they got nervous, or they're getting nervous. It says, so now we're coming to the time of what? We went through the downtrodden, through the hell, through the awakening, and now we're coming to the end where the deliverance is going to come from. And they heard a great voice from heaven saying unto them, come up hither. That's talking about that chariot. That big chariot that Yahushua is coming in. And they ascended up to heaven in the cloud, and their enemies beheld them. Yeah, so that our enemies are going to behold us going up into the chariots. Lord's will, we be the elect. They're going to see it. And this goes hand in hand with Wisdom of Solomon, the 5th chapter. When they're going to be kicking themselves in the ass because they didn't consider that we are the children of the Most High. It says, and the same hour was there a great earthquake, which is what? The destruction. The missiles pelting down on the earth. And the 10th part of the city fell, which is America. And in the earthquake were slain of men 7,000, meaning a complete number. 500 square mile, 5,000 square miles of America, from west coast to east coast, from north to south. And the remnant were affrighted, which dealing with what? The elect. Because it's going to be devastating, man. Even the elect are going to be shook inside. And gave glory to the power of heaven. But the difference is, the hope of salvation. It says the second war is past, and behold, the third war cometh quickly, which this is going into something else. This is going into World War II, past, and the third war, which is World War III, is coming quickly. There's a series of scriptures that go along with this. So now it speaks about the seventh trumpet, Yahushua's reign foreseen. And the seventh angel sounded, and there were great voices in heaven saying, the kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of our Lord. So we know that this is speaking about the end. And of his anointed, and he shall reign forever and ever. So we read the same thing in the book of Daniel, the 7th chapter. After they wore out the saints of the Most High, what happened? Then they got the victory. And the 24 elders which sat before the Most High on their seats fell upon their faces and worshipped the Most High, saying, We give thee thanks, O Lord, Yahweh Bashem El Shai, power almighty, which art and was and art to come, because thou hast taken to thee thy great power and has reigned. Yeah, because now it's time to reign. And the next kingdom that's coming is Yahushua's kingdom, which is ours because we're joint heirs with him. It says, and the nations were angry. Why? Because their dreams went up in smoke. It says, and thy wrath is come. Because everyone's thinking that they're next to rule. They see in America slipping. They're like, oh man, can't wait for this hole to fall because we're going to be next. But they're in for a rude awakening. And the time of the dead, that they should be judged, and that thou shouldest give reward unto thy servants, the prophets, and to the saints. See? And them that fear thy name. If you're playing with the Lord's name, you ain't going to receive salvation, man. It says that the Lord give reward to his servants, the prophets, and to the saints, which are other Israelites, and them that fear thy name. It says, and small and great, and should destroy them which destroy the earth, which is dealing with Esau. So the Lord is coming to do business. He's coming to get busy. It says, and the temple of the Most High was open in heaven, and there was seen in his temple the ark of his testament, and there were lightnings and voices and thunderings and an earthquake and great hail, destruction. And that's it. Because when the seventh trumpet blows, ooh, ooh, inside joke. All right. So pretty much that's Revelation 11, and like I said, if there was any point in here where I went off on, I know Elder Apostle Tar is going to let me know. And then if that's the case, then I'll go back and correct it, and give the right sense of it. All right. So like I said, this has been Revelation 11. I pray that your brothers have been edified. Till the next time I say Shalom.